So, you want to make a feature film, or you want to bring to life some sort of artistic aspiration, and you're wondering, how can I do that? And I'm going to be completely honest with you and tell you right now that I don't know. Your unique journey to that end goal will be completely idiosyncratic and yours alone. Just as my journey to my feature film was its own unique thing, so different to really anyone I've ever talked to. With that said, I do think there are certain principles that will enable you to be set up for success and to get to that end goal in a way that you are proud of and can look back on with satisfaction. Now, I do apologize to the screenwriter out there that presented this principle to me because I can't recall his name. Nonetheless, what he shared was indeed a wise piece of advice. That being, we as artists, more often than not, of course there are always exceptions, but more often than not, have to choose 2 of 3 different ways in which we pursue and make our art. Those 3 different ways are cheap, fast, and good. So, Hollywood, for example, will more often than not attempt to choose the fast and good option. They want to make good art, or at least art that will turn a profit, and they want to make that art quite quickly. Relatively speaking, of course. While indeed it did take hundreds of days to shoot the most recent Mission Impossible and months to shoot Oppenheimer, without their gargantuan budgets, it would have taken years to make both of those films. But what if you're like me, and you're not a large Hollywood studio with millions of dollars to throw around? Well, there is one of those 3 that is locked in right there for you. You have to make your film cheaply. And also, if you're like me, you want to still make a good quality product. Well, there's your second one locked in, which means more often than not, you are signing up for a very long process. And that length can manifest itself in a number of ways. With filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and Peter Jackson, if you look at their first 2 films, which in my opinion were good, and also made quite cheaply, they took a long time to make. Both shot their films on weekends, their productions lasting around a year. For me, on my first feature film, Do No Harm, the length manifested itself on the lead time up to the shoot, it taking over 6 years from the conception of the film to its final delivery. In that time, I wrote and directed and released a short film as a proof of concept. And then it took me over 2 years to raise our budget, going out to individual investors, pitching them on the concept, and inviting them on board. Nonetheless, even while I just said more often than not, you really do need to choose 2 of those 3 elements, with my first feature film, I was able to kind of get all 3. I was able to make the film relatively cheaply, and I was able to make it quite quickly. I didn't need to pull a Christopher Nolan or a Peter Jackson and shoot it on the weekends over an entire year. And even while I will leave this up to you and the rest of the viewing audience to determine, I personally feel like the film did come out quite well. It was good. So I was able to make it cheaply, quickly, and good. How? How was I able to do these 3 things, and how might you be able to do all 3 as well? Well, one of the very first things that I will encourage you to do as you are in the process of trying to make your first feature film is choose a concept that can be produced exceptionally well for a very small amount of money. This was indeed one of the main reasons that I chose to develop Do No Harm as a concept. It was one that was set during the modern day. It had a relatively limited number of locations, a relatively limited number of cast members. It had little to no stunts or special effects, and the visual effects that it did require, I knew that myself, as well as some close friends of mine, would be able to produce at a quality level. Which leads me to the second piece of advice. When you are prepping to write your very first feature film, study films that are similar in genre, scale, and made by filmmakers who are not in that dissimilar of a place to you. So rather than endlessly watching and obsessing over peak Martin Scorsese, go back and watch Mean Streets. Rather than watching on loop E.T., Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Saving Private Ryan, go and watch Steven Spielberg's Duel. Yes, absolutely watch and study the filmmakers that you love, admire, and adore, but watch their films earlier in their career, when they had at their disposal resources that are not so dissimilar to your own. Here's the thing though, once you have found that cheap and quick to make concept, you still need to ensure that the end product is going to be good. And to ensure this, I'm going to quote another great filmmaker, that being Howard Hawks, who once said, "A great film is one that has no bad scenes and 3 great scenes." So let's assume that you've found a narrative that possesses no bad scenes. Now here's the question. Does that film have 3 great scenes? Are there 3 elements within that, either on the page or how you're going to bring it to life visually, that are great, that are so uniquely you that when someone watches that film and walks away from that film, they can't help but think about those 3 great elements? And I can tell you from personal experience, when I was pitching the lead actor, the main thing he was interested in hearing me articulate was, what were those 3 great elements? He had read the script and seen for himself that it was good, but he wanted to know from me what were the elements that were going to raise that thing above all the other indie films that are out there. The indie films that may be functioning quite well and are solid, but films that are so quickly lost in just the gargantuan sea of content. Now, even while I was indeed able to produce a film that was cheap, I was able to make it relatively quickly and hopefully to a degree that others will find quality. This is not a sustainable business model unless this film is profitable. If you want to continue to make quality films and you want to make them more frequently than every 5 to 10 years, these films have to make money. Plain and simple. So let's rewind again. When you were seeking to find a concept that you ought to develop into your first feature film, yes, find something that is simple, find something that can be produced exceptionally well for a very small amount of money, but also seek to find a concept that is both timely and, by extension, marketable. So how do you do this? How do you find something that is going to resonate with an audience and actually turn a profit? That's the $1 million question, and if I or anyone else out there knew the answer, every single film would be as profitable as Barbie and Oppenheimer. So what are we artists to do? What are we to do when the landscape is constantly changing, when what was hot 5 minutes ago is now completely irrelevant and boring? Well, again, there is no silver bullet, one thing that will always lead to success. There are a few tried and true principles that have worked time and again throughout the history of the medium. One of them being, do your research. Study the films that are similar in genre, scale, and tone. When did they come out? What did the market look like? Who was in front of the camera? Who was behind the camera? Look at all of those elements, if only just because one of the very first things that an investor will ask you is what other films have come out that are similar to yours that have made money. And you need to have an answer for them. But far more important than that is research and study your own film. And the way to do that is to present it and pitch it to as many humans as humanly possible. Pitch it to your grandma. Pitch it to your wife, pitch it to your kids, pitch it to the random guy sitting next to you on the bus if he will let you. Preferably before you've even put fingers to keys, articulate out loud to others what this story is about, what its central conflict is, what its character arcs are, and see how it lands. As you pitch it to people out loud, you will see on their face if it's working. Are they leaning in? Are they engaged? Are they staying engaged? At what point do you lose them? And why do you lose them? Study these things and listen to these things. Unfortunately, this is going to require you to do 2 things. It's going to require you to get out of your head, to get off the page, open your mouth, and actually concisely and compellingly share something, which for a lot of us is terrifying. And the other thing that it's going to require you to do, which is awfully uncomfortable for a lot of us, myself included, is share a work in progress. Something that is not yet perfect. So find people that you can trust. Find people that aren't going to rip you to shreds when you share something that isn't quite all the way there. That know how to tactfully find the positives in that work as well as identify the areas that need some significant work. And the last way to figure out if in fact your project is going to make any sort of money is to listen to yourself. Is this project something that you cannot escape from? It's latched onto you and it will not let go. If you love something and it resonates with you and you are willing to give up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of your life to bring this thing to life, odds are it's going to resonate with others as well. The last idea that I'll share with all of you artists out there today, those of you that want to create a feature film or want to bring to life some sort of artistic aspiration, is do not believe for a second that this path is for the faint of heart. What you are endeavoring to do is incredibly hard, especially if you're wanting to make a feature film, but really any sort of artistic endeavor will require dedication, diligence, self-sacrifice, in my opinion, hope and optimism, which a lot of my friends would classify as stupidity and ignorance. It will require all of you. So again, do not enter into this thing lightly. The last video, I talked for 10 minutes about all the reasons why you should continue to pursue your artistic dreams. And if that thing is to make a feature film, you keep at that thing no matter what age you are. Here's the thing. Not all of us are going to get to make that large project. Not all of us are going to get to bring to life that artistic dream, if only just because this is an incredibly difficult endeavor. A moment ago, I just articulated how challenging it is for an artistic accomplishment to be fast, cheap, and good, but I would contend what is even more challenging is for an artist to live a life that is both comfortable and successful. If your idea of comfort is working a 9 to 5 and having weekends off and every single bank holiday off, and if your idea of success is millions of dollars and worldwide fame and recognition, having both of those things is going to be nearly impossible. So, as you are considering your life and how your artistic dreams might fit into your life, I would encourage you to consider 3 questions. Do you desperately desire both comfort and success? And if so, how would you define comfort and success? And after defining comfort and success, are you willing to, in order to bring your artistic vision to life, your artistic dreams to life, to be successful in that, are you willing to give up some level of comfort, or is that comfort too important to you? I genuinely don't think that there is a right or wrong answer. It really depends on who you are and where ultimately you want to get and what ultimately you want to do with your life. All right, guys. Thanks so much for taking the time to sit with me. It's genuinely so helpful for me to think through and to articulate these ideas, and I hope that they're just a little bit helpful for you as well as you seek to bring to life your artistic goals and aspirations. And remember, life is happening now, so live it. Cheers.